is NBC Palm Springs.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Daytona Everett. Topping your news at this hour. A video.
Show me your papers.
Could you move away?
No, I want to see your papers.
You want to see my papers?
Yes.
Your immigration.
It's a video that went viral. A resident of a housing complex in Rancho Mirage harassing a landscaper, asking to see his immigration papers multiple times. Today, Rancho Mirage officials say they've completed an investigation into that incident, telling the Desert Sun it was an isolated occurrence. They had been looking at city housing policy and whether anything should be done to prevent a similar incident in the future. The city attorney did say, quote, action will be taken. Parkview Villas property managers are reportedly conducting another investigation, which could ultimately end in the woman being evicted. NBC Palm Springs reached out to the property for comment, but has not received a response. The woman in that video has not been identified. An inmate who escaped from an Indio jail yesterday is back in custody. Authorities found Angel Felipe Aleman 5 hours after he escaped from the John Benoit Detention Center. On Friday, he allegedly stole a bank deposit bag with $140,000 in it from an armored vehicle in a parking lot. He fled the scene and was found by officers doing yard work at an Indio home. Police later found the bank deposit bag in a hole dug in a dirt lot. The Sheriff's Department has not said how Aleman escaped custody yesterday or the charges that he now faces. The coronavirus is not taking the weekends off. The U.S. has broken single-day case records 9 times this month, and several states are also breaking the same records, reporting upwards of 10,000 cases a day consistently. All this comes as the national backlog of tests continues to grow, with some states seeing wait times of nearly 3 weeks. We'll have more on all those stories in a bit, but first, we'll start here at home. Last week, Governor Newsom announced specific guidelines for the upcoming school year. Part of his announcement included an extra $5.3 billion in funding to deal with distance learning. Our Nico Payne spoke with school officials and teachers on how that funding will be used. Nico.
After the governor's anticipated announcement, school leaders tell me they are happy to have guidelines that align with theirs, but they still have questions about extra funds and plans for our districts.
That package includes $5.3 billion to deal with learning loss that was associated with some of the closures last year, and a very, very focused and intentional effort.
California Governor Gavin Newsom, while discussing what the new school year will look like, announces extra funds available to California schools. Local districts in the Coachella Valley explaining what they hope to be able to use the funds for had one thing in common: technology to support online learning.
I'm hoping that we would be able to access any funds that we needed for additional devices and connectivity. But I know there are other districts that are nowhere near where we are.
To be able to ensure that we are providing that rigorous instruction that we're talking about in virtual distance learning. So that includes the devices, that includes the connectivity that we have to ensure works in order for our students to be able to connect and to be able to receive instruction from the teachers every day.
For next school year, every child in Desert Sands from kindergarten to 12th grade will have that technology. And that's critical for what the governor was talking about for the rigorous distance learning.
And while districts have to set up distance learning and make sure all students have access, teachers would be the ones using it day in and day out.
$5.3 billion from the state obviously is a help. Desert Sands specifically really had a leg up on the technology, where we had already had a one-to-one device technology program in place.
This school year is sure to be different from years past, but at the end of the day, the goal is to make sure students can learn without distractions and to create as normal of an environment as possible.
What I really liked is how he truly connected. You know, as much as we all want to get, and we do too, we all want to get kids back in school. Wear your mask. Wear your mask and you get kids back in school.
And with school starting in just a few weeks, some districts have decided to provide distance learning as an option for the entire year. Reporting in studio, I'm Nico Payne.
All right, thank you, Nico. As COVID-19 surges in the U.S., some states, labs, and public health departments are warning that turnaround times for testing have slowed. Now, the director of the National Institutes for Health says that COVID-19 testing delays is undercutting their usefulness.
The average test delay is too long. You're absolutely right. It averages around the country. It's about 3 days, but in some places it's as long as a week. And that really undercuts the value of the testing, because you do the testing to find out who's carrying the virus and then quickly get them isolated so they don't spread it around. And it's very hard to make that work when there's a long delay built in.
Some states are reporting 3-week delays for results. That's despite federal efforts to support testing in some cities and regions.
We are going to do everything we can to make sure that the CDC is fully funded in the stimulus package. The administration's talking about, and the Republican McConnell is talking about cutting it. That would be cutting your nose to spite your face. We need the CDC to help us fight COVID.
Senator Chuck Schumer vows to keep the CDC fully funded. This comes amid reports that the White House is attempting to cut funding for the CDC and National Institutes of Health, as well as limit funding for testing and contact tracing. The CDC updates guidelines for people with COVID who are isolating at home. Under the new guidelines, a person can stop isolating 10 days after the symptoms first appeared under 2 conditions. 24 hours must have passed since the last fever without the use of fever-reducing medications, and symptoms such as coughing and shortness of breath must have improved as well. Before these new guidelines, though, people who were infected were advised to wait 72 hours after their last fever, and respiratory symptoms was changed to simply symptoms to address the expanding list of COVID-19 symptoms. All right, let's take a look at the latest COVID-19 numbers from Riverside County and the entire Coachella Valley. The county does not report numbers on weekends, so these are as of Friday. Over 28,000 cases in Riverside County, nearly 7,900 of those in the Coachella Valley, 587 deaths in the county, 173 in the valley. For some perspective, take a look at this graph that's right behind me from Riverside County Public Health. This tracks the number of daily cases. You can see that there's definitely a little bit of a shift on this graph that's going on right here. And you can see that they report numbers on the weekend, so these are as of Friday. Our numbers have been much lower since a couple weeks ago. This graph tracks the number of daily cases in the county, this one right here, and how many of those are positive. The most recent data confirms our positivity rate is around 17%. That means 17% of people tested in the county were positive for COVID-19. And finally, this final graph right here, sorry about technical problems we've been having. This, you can see the line to the far right is where we're currently headed. About a month ago, it looked like we were on the way to flattening the curve, but as the county reopened, confirmed cases also began to rise. All right, with that, we're taking a look at our Walter Clark Highway 111 cam. We're going to send things over to Taylor Martinez for a look at your AccuWeather forecast. Hey, Taylor.
Hi, Daytona, and happy Sunday, everyone. Right now, we're looking at current conditions in Palm Springs. We're seeing 114 out there right now. Very dry with humidity of only 5%. And as I told you about yesterday, those winds have picked up. They started to pick up this afternoon, and we'll talk about that a little more later. Looking forward to tomorrow. Highs of 112 in Palm Springs. Expect those winds to pick up in the afternoon as they did today. Next 3 days brought to you by Comfort Air. 112 both Monday and Tuesday. Wednesday, we see some nice relief with 107. Coming up in the full forecast, I'll tell you about those winds that we talked about and when those will go away, as well as when we'll see more of a cool off.
All right, thank you, Taylor. Health officials are still working around the clock to learn more about the coronavirus as it changes every day. The World Health Organization is now saying patients who recover from COVID-19 may be able to get the coronavirus again, and studies suggest their immunity could wane after a few months. Here's a fact check on some of the most common questions about the virus. Let's get down to the facts of the coronavirus. First up, can COVID-19 be spread through food?
Directly through food, no, but the process of eating can be exposure.
Does warm weather kill the virus?
Unfortunately not. We were hoping that would be the case, but it doesn't seem to have an effect.
Can you get the virus from mail?
The mail is the absolute lowest way to catch COVID.
Can animals spread the virus?
Well, I think in general, we're not sure about all animals, but we don't think common household pets spread the virus.
Do cleaning products kill the virus?
Yes, we're very confident that the virus is contained that way.
Are kids' symptoms different than adults?
Children can be can be carriers of the illness with low symptoms. But remember that a lot of kids have been staying home, so they're obviously not in contact with other kids.
Can you get it again if you have the antibodies?
We are finding that most people aren't getting reinfected, and that people that are antibody positive seem to be doing very well and safe.
Does it cause permanent damage?
I know the fatigue is a big issue. It seems like the taste and smell issues come back. I think there can be permanent lung scarring, injuries to different organ systems. There are some neurologic compromises that people are concerned about. We really won't know for years what the long-term consequences of COVID are.
Is it spreading faster, and is it getting less severe?
I think we're seeing a combination of just a large number of people being exposed to it, but we're also not seeing as many critically ill patients as we did at the beginning.
Do vitamins help prevent it?
That's recommended, that zinc, 50 milligrams twice a day, vitamin C are supposed to be helpful, and I think a lot of people swear by it.
Can masks really make you sick?
No, unless you're claustrophobic.
Last but not least, what's the most asked question?
When is this going to end?
His answer:
when it's over.
Coronavirus coverage brought to you by East Valley COVID-19 testing site, serving residents of eastern Coachella Valley.
All right, coming up after the break, as the U.S. continues setting records for coronavirus cases, the mayor of Miami makes a surprising announcement. We'll have details next. Plus, have you heard of a COVID surcharge? We'll tell you why you might be paying more for everyday purchases. Coming up.
Ahead for us, COVID cases spike as Miami shuts down partiers, and the World Health Organization warns of falling vaccination rates. Also honoring the first Black female doctor in America and recognizing the inequality that still exists. All ahead on Nightly News.
Several states are reporting alarming new coronavirus numbers this weekend. This, as a new report recommends 18 states roll back reopening measures. Meredith Wood has the latest.
A grim milestone, the U.S. shattering records of daily new coronavirus cases at least 9 times in a month. Alarming new coronavirus numbers reported in several states, including Florida, which is a hot spot.
If things continue and this continues to be unmanageable, we're going to have to make some dramatic decisions, like potentially a stay-at-home order.
On Sunday, the latest numbers out of Florida showed more than 12,000 new infections and 87 deaths reported. Hospitals there are struggling to keep up with the surge of patients. Texas also seeing a sharp rise in COVID cases, as well as Georgia and Mississippi, where despite the surge, the governor is defending his decision to not issue a statewide mask mandate.
If I believed that was the best way to save lives in my state, I would have done it a long time ago.
On Fox News Sunday, President Trump also saying he would not issue a nationwide mask mandate, downplaying the virus.
I will be right eventually. You know, I said it's going to disappear. I'll say it again. But it's going to disappear.
Does that discredit
and I'll
you?
be right. I don't think so.
Right.
I don't think so. You know why it doesn't discredit? Because I've been right probably more than anybody else.
This comes as an unpublished report prepared by the White House Coronavirus Task Force recommends 18 states, including hard-hit Florida and California, roll back reopening measures.
This virus preys on our division. It preys when we get exhausted. It preys on us in those moments when we don't have a unified national front or we as individuals think, this ain't going to be a big deal. We have to be as vigilant right now as we were the first day.
I'm Meredith Wood reporting.
Arizona sees its highest daily increase in COVID-19 deaths since the pandemic started. The Arizona Health Department reported yesterday there were 147 new deaths. More than 2,700 new cases were also reported. More than 40% of Arizona's total cases have been reported this month. Take a look at these lines right here. As the number of positive coronavirus cases continue to surge in Arizona, the state health department has started a testing blitz. They're targeting South Phoenix and Maryville, two underserved, high-need communities. Up to 5,000 tests will be conducted daily, 2,500 at each site for 12 days, and will serve up to 60,000 Arizonans. The health department will also be giving out free masks at these testing sites. A Kentucky couple is under house arrest after one of them did not sign self-quarantine documents after testing positive for COVID-19. Elizabeth Linscott tested positive last week, but was not showing symptoms. Linscott said the health department asked her to sign documents limiting her travel unless she called the health department first. She chose to not sign the documents. Police were involved, and she and her husband were ordered to wear ankle monitors that would notify law enforcement if they traveled more than 200 feet. Kanye West holds a campaign event in Charleston, South Carolina. This as the state's deadline to file signatures as an independent candidate approaches. Kanye would need 10,000 signatures to be put on the ballot, as the state doesn't allow write-in candidates. He's also paid a $35,000 registration fee last week to be on the ballot in Oklahoma. Authorities in Portland are declaring last night's protest a riot. You can see this shocking video of authorities clashing with protesters. Portland police said that people broke into the police association's office and lit the building on fire. Authorities also say a large crowd of people removed fencing around the federal courthouse downtown. This comes as federal officers have been seen during the protests. Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler says unidentified militarized agents are snatching people up. But President Trump tweeted today that his aggressive federal response to protests are meant to try and help Portland, not hurt it. All right, still more to come after the break, but first, Taylor.
Hi, Daytona. We're taking a live look at our Walter Clark Highway 111 cam right now. As you can see behind me, there is some movement in the trees and the camera. We'll talk about that in the next 7 days after the break. Taylor Martinez filling in on this lovely Sunday evening. Taking a live look at our Agua Caliente casino cameras. This one in Rancho Mirage, you can see some dust moving there. We'll talk about that in a moment because of those winds, as well as some palm trees out in Palm Springs. Getting right to the numbers though, today we saw a high of a 114 in Palm Springs, higher than our normal of this time. That's usually about 108. Right now in Palm Springs, we're seeing 111 at the airport, humidity of only 5%. It's hot and dry out there, and as we keep mentioning, those winds are picking up. We're seeing gusts of almost 30 miles per hour. Talking about those winds now, here's what they're looking like throughout the night. They will calm down as the night goes on, but we will see gusts staying about 30 miles per hour until about 10 p.m. when they'll start to calm down. We do have a wind advisory in effect until tomorrow at 6 a.m. Right now, across the southwest, 115 Lake Havasu, 108 in Vegas, 67 out in Santa Barbara. Those low 70s inland and along the coast, bringing it a little closer to home. 103 in Desert Hot Springs, 108 in Thousand Palms, 111 in Indio, Palm Desert, and Palm Springs, 77 up in Big Bear. Not much going on in the satellite for us here at home, but as we mentioned yesterday, there is some activity to the east of us. That's because those areas of Arizona, New Mexico, and Colorado will continue to see spotty thunderstorms throughout the night. Bringing it back home tomorrow, 6 a.m., 78 degrees. We've been seeing 80s, so that's nice, right? Before we work our way up to 112 at 4 p.m., those dew points staying in the high 40s and low 50s for much of the day. Tomorrow, highs 104 in Joshua Tree, 112 in Palm Springs and Thousand Palms, 113 in Indio and Palm Desert, 80 up there in Big Bear. Similar patterns on Tuesday, 104 in Joshua Tree, 111 on Thousand Palms, Indio, and Palm Desert, 96 out in Banning. Looking at our next 7 days, brought to you by Comfort Air. 112 both Monday and Tuesday. Wednesday a little bit more relief with 107, as well as Thursday. Friday 106, that's our biggest relief before we go into our weekend, looking at 108 on Saturday and 110 on Sunday, with those lows actually seeing the 70s, which we haven't seen in a good amount of time.
Aldi joins the list of retailers requiring masks in stores starting on July 27th. They join a large list of major stores across the U.S. that have announced they would begin requiring masks for all customers. Starbucks and Best Buy are now requiring them. Walmart, Sam's Club, and Kohl's will begin requiring masks tomorrow, and Kroger stores will require masks starting on July 22nd. Well, prepare to fork out more money for many of the items that you might buy every day. Stephanie Ruhle has the surprising details behind the new coronavirus surcharge.
In Missouri, an extra 5% tacked on for barbecue. In North Carolina, an extra $10 on the dental bill.
We need to spread the pain around just a little bit.
And at this restaurant in Chicago, a whopping 26% fee added to each bill.
This was just a real power struggle for us to be able to stay in business.
They eventually rolled it back. As the pandemic raises operating costs, businesses from coast to coast are adding a new line to their bills, a COVID surcharge.
I saw that surcharge on the receipt and I wouldn't pay a tip at all. It's another greedy hand in my pocket.
Businesses have made big changes to reopen safely, from setting up outdoor dining to plexiglass protections, all of which cost a whole lot of money, prompting many businesses to raise prices just to stay afloat.
Nobody tells you what to do. There's no COVID salon playbook.
In New Jersey, the Coco Bon Spa is back open after 99 days with new COVID precautions like masks, gloves, and protective barriers.
We decided to implement a COVID surcharge.
With the new costs and rising prices for even her standard supplies, owner Erin McCabe is passing along some costs to customers. How does the COVID surcharge work?
The COVID surcharge is just a $2.50 surcharge that is applied to each bill.
Some retail analysts think the surcharge could backfire.
A lot of people really feel that there's a gotcha to this, and we as consumers have the right to decide where we want to shop, and I think that's the risk for these companies that put in a surcharge that may not be popular.
For Erin at the Coco Bon Spa, she says the surcharge is a necessary cost of doing business in the pandemic.
That $2.50 as a surcharge is not for us to make money. It's just to stay afloat.
Stephanie Rule, NBC News, New Jersey.
We'll be right back after the break. All right, thank you so much for joining us tonight. If you missed any of today's stories, you can see them on our fantastic website, NBCPalmSprings.com. You see this QR code right here. You can scan it, and it'll actually take you to our website. Taylor, what does it mean to scan a QR code? A lot of people don't know what that means.
Just take out your phone, open your camera, point it right at that barcode, boom.
You're good to go.
Yeah.
Easy peasy. We'll have to teach Gino Lamont. He doesn't know how to do it. All right, we'll see you at 6 o'clock. Have a great night.
Good night.